friends. Welcome to Sky House Herbs podcast. I'm Ashley Ellenvoss, a clinical herbalist, and in this space, I share my knowledge and experience with plant medicine to help you on your own journey of healing and transformation. Join me in exploring the ancient wisdom of plant spirit medicine and how it can be used to heal the body, mind, and spirit. We'll talk to experts in the field and share stories from people who've been transformed by powerful plant allies. New episodes are released each Monday, so please subscribe. And now, let's explore this mystical world of plant medicine together. Hey everyone, welcome in. Today we are covering an herb of the month, and I'm really excited to share with you the medicine, the magic, some fresh plant of this herb, and then also a tarot deck that I really love that has a beautiful image of our plant of the month. Our plant of the month that we're going to be covering today is chamomile, and chamomile, here is the card, is such a relaxing, soothing, restorative, and deeply nourishing plant that I think sometimes gets overlooked because it's so common. You know, we see it in commerce, it's offered at every tea shop, but we might not realize actually what a powerful medicine and what a diverse array of actions this herb has. So I'm very excited to share with you all that I know about this plant, or as much as I can fit into one session. And it should be a fun talk. Now, before I get into all of the details of chamomile, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Just one click. It really does help people to find me. And then if you want to be notified of my talks that come out every Monday, just click on receive notifications or allow notifications, and then you will know when my next talk comes out. Also, if you like this video, click the like, click the share if you know someone who you think might benefit from learning about herbs. And now let's talk about chamomile. So this is an herb that I have grown in my garden for, I guess about 10 years now. It's a very easy herb to grow. It can grow very prolifically if given the right conditions. And so although a lot of herbs, including chamomile, we think of them as being full sun, in my experience, chamomile does best with partial sun, partial shade. It likes to have the morning sun and then a little shade, or shade in the morning and then sun all afternoon. But it doesn't seem to do well with full sun all day, like in an open prairie. There may be some people that have good luck with that, but in my gardens on both the East Coast and here now in the Midwest, I found that partial sun, partial shade does really well for this herb. Chamomile, there's two main varieties, and both of them are medicinal, and both of them can be used interchangeably for the most part. There is German chamomile and there is Roman chamomile. So the German chamomile is Matricaria chamomilla, and that's the chamomile that I've grown. I really like it because it has very prolific flowers. I just harvested these from my garden this morning. And with the German chamomile, they're a little bit taller and they tend to have more flower heads, whereas the Roman chamomile, which is Chamomilla requita, it's a little bit more, it's a little shorter and a little bushier. And the German chamomile is a little taller and a little fuller. So you can grow both. Maybe there's one that grows better in your region, but I've had really good luck with the German chamomile. And it's the flowers that are the medicinal parts. We don't use the leaves, we don't use the roots, we don't use the stems. Really, all the goodies and the volatile oils and the terpenes and compounds we want are in the flower heads. And we can smell it. I mean, this is so strong. I mean, the smell of fresh chamomile, either in the sun or freshly picked, it's overwhelming. There should be good scent when you pick your herbs. And a lot of these volatile oils are what make this a wonderful medicine, along with flavonoids and terpenes and other anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compounds. So let's talk a little bit about the main qualities of chamomile, what to expect if you are going to be taking chamomile into your body. It is an antispasmodic, So it is going to help with cramps. That can be muscle cramps and also digestive cramping or even menstrual cramping. It's very soothing and relaxing because of a lot of the oils that found in the plant. It is also a nervine relaxant, so it's very good for nervous systems that are taxed and stressed. We'll talk a little bit more specifically about what kind of stress and what kind of nervous exhaustion and nervous excitation are helped by chamomile. It's a strong anti-inflammatory, and that's why we find chamomile in a lot of skincare products, especially for redness or rosacea, because of the anti-inflammatory qualities found in the azulene, which is one of the essential oils found in this plant. It is a digestive aid, so it's been used a long time for helping increase digestion. It has a bitter taste to it, so if you let it steep too long as a tea, those bitter compounds will come out, but those are actually really good for your digestion, and they will stimulate the production of bile, which helps then to loosen the stools and relieve constipation or tightness in the stomach. And then it's also, along with being a nervine relaxant, it's also considered to be sedative. So it'll help you sleep. And so chamomile has a long history of use with mothers, helping put your children to sleep, or even helping mothers themselves get good rest and good sleep. So I want to talk about the name. Where does the name, because I find that when you look into the etymology or the name of an herb, you can learn a lot about its historical uses and a little bit about some of the different ways and magic we can think about when we are considering this plant. So the name chamomile comes from the Greek word chamomilon, which is made out of two words. One is chamos, which means chemos means on the ground, and then melon, which means apple. So it basically, they were chamomile, it translates as earth apple, and that tells us about the smell. The smell of chamomile smells a lot like an apple that is like maybe even a little spoiled, like kind of like an apple cider. If you've ever been to an apple mill where they're making cider, and you can kind of get that kind of little bit of that sweet but also kind of fermented cider smell. So it's like the apples that have fallen to the ground and are starting to decay. That's the earth melon or the earth apple that the Greeks were referring to, and that's the smell. We also see in a lot of Spanish-speaking cultures, they call it manzanilla, which means little apple. So they're like, tiny little apples. The other names, the Latin name for the German chamomile or Matricaria chamomilla, Matricaria tells us something about this plant too. So mater comes from the Latin word mother or also the womb, the matrix or the womb. And then caria means two things. It means to rock or to soothe, like you would rock a baby, but it also means that which is spoiled, which is kind of interesting to think about. So we can think about the mother that carries us or rocks us and the mother who has spoiled. And that could be maybe the mother who has spoiled the child with, too much, which, yeah, it's debatable. But, more so, I think of it as the parts of the mother herself that are spoiled, right? No one's perfect, mothers included. So, maybe it's the parts of the mother that haven't been tended, that have rotted, that have not been cared for, or have not been removed. Because when you become a mother, there's things that you have to let go of as you mature and age and come into motherhood. So I think this plant in its name alone tells us a lot about the mothering qualities of chamomile, and it can help our nervous systems relax so that we can look at how do we care and mother ourselves. How do you tend your own inner child? What are the ways that you are nurturing and giving yourself sustainable relaxation and care? And at the same time, if you're relaxed, it's easier to do the hard work of scraping out that which has spoiled, getting rid of, because once a fruit starts to spoil, the rest of it will rot. But if you can take out the spoiled part and cut it out soon enough, you can spare the rest of the fruit. So in that way, that the deeper reflective work we can do as parents or as mothers or just as humans, of saying, okay, where are the parts of the archetype of the mother that actually are not true? And and just think, giving some examples, it might be that the mother has to sacrifice everything. That's not true. Let's take that out. Or, the mother can no longer be, can no longer have her femininity or, be attractive. Well, let's scrape that out. Or what about the part of the mother that has to control the child, right? That the child is an extension of the mother. And so therefore the mother has to be vigilant and helicopter over the child to control its every choice. Well, let's scrape that out, right? So for each of us, we may want to look at that. And chamomile can help our nervous systems feel calm and safe so we can do that inner excavative work. Now, there's a few uses that I really love to think about when I use chamomile with clients and also when friends and family come over, is the idea that Matthew Wood taught me, which is chamomile is for babies of all ages. So sometimes we are feeling kind of tender and vulnerable and maybe a little exposed, a little childlike. And, specifically with chamomile, it's when we process those emotions through needing to talk about it. And so we probably all know someone who, when something happens, they just have to talk, 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 talk. They're processors through verbalization. And that's totally a valid way of processing. But when it gets to the point of maybe whining or complaining or being inconsolable, which are less mature expressions of the child, then, we might need some support. So chamomile can help with that type of expression, which is opposed to the other expression, which is a person who bottles everything up and doesn't let anything out. That's more of the catnip archetype. So we use catnip for that, but that's another herb of the month talk. So babies of all ages, and this plant can be used for babies. It's very safe for babies. It was used traditionally as an herbal tea for babies with colic, and I used it with my oldest daughter who has had colic as a baby, which was just awful. Goddess bless all of you who've had a colicky child, because it is like so intense. And so I would give my daughter just, I would use I'd make a tea and then I would just use a dropper. And I did a skin test first because some children are more sensitive to Asteraceae plants, which is something you want to be aware of. So, do a skin test first. And if they don't have a reaction, I would just do like 2 or 3 drops of chamomile and a few drops of fennel as a tea when she was really little. And it kind of helped. I think it also helped me because I would drink the chamomile tea afterwards. And that just helped my nerves feel more restored and helped me to feel a little more grounded, like a grounded apple. um, so the child, I think that is a good image, is chamomile as, for children of all ages. Matthew Wood also teaches that chamomile is really helpful for tension combined with heat. So when heat kind of gets trapped in the body and then everything gets really tight around it. And in Chinese medicine, they call it like constricted liver qi. So when there's tension and the heat can't disperse from the body, then that can really cause agitation, irritation, irritability, anger, all of those things, and emotional, just emotional oversensitivity. So if that is happening, chamomile, being bitter, being warming, being dispersive, is real, and being antispasmodic, so it helps with tension, is a wonderful remedy for that pattern. So think about tension combined with heat. That is a perfect place where chamomile can come in and support us. In ancient Rome, chamomile was used for nausea, vomiting, heartburn, and gas. So we see a lot of GI uses. We also see it being used in Egypt for skin irritations. And so this is also a really good topical herb for hives, unless they're obviously caused by plants in the Asteraceae. It's also really good for hay fever and allergies. So if you're not allergic to chamomile, which most people are not, and you would know, because if you've ever had chamomile, you would have had your mouth would probably get really itchy and your eyes would get swollen. So if you've had chamomile, you've had no reaction, you're very likely not allergic to it. So it can be very helpful for allergies, like seasonal allergies, like ragweed pollen, tree pollen, all of those things. You can think about it being a really good antihistamine, and it combines really well with nettles for allergies. You could put those two together, and the tastes combine really nicely as well. In pagan rituals, chamomile was used to enhance positive energy and balance. So it's seen as a very uplifting herb to help when people were maybe kind of weighed down with melancholy. And this herb is like it's just very bright and cheerful. It's like little tiny daisies. So it has this very kind of uplifting, fairy sprite, bright energy to it. And it's also called the plant doctor because it was used as a tea to help other plants that were sick and ailing. And I've actually done this with house plants and herbs in the garden, where I'll take a tea or I'll just use the spent herb after making a tea and sprinkle it around sick plants. And this is used also in biodynamic farming. And because it helps to break down the proteins found in the compost and the humic plant nutrients, and the breaking down of the plant proteins prevents it prevents the proteins from breaking down to ammonia, which can be harmful for plants. So we can think about it being not only a mother to our nervous system, but it's also like a mother to the plants. So we can use this herb to help bring injured or sick plants or neglected plants, like, oh no, I left you and I forgot to water you for too long. Like, it can help revive them and bring them back to life. A few other things about this herb that I really love is that you can think about it being used as I like to think about the way that this plant, like the essence of the flower, can help us. And I talked about kind of that idea of exploring the inner mother archetype and what that means. But I also think that as a flower essence, it can help us take a little bit of distance from the things that are really bothering us. So, let's just say you're not even in a place where you want to go into that mother work. By taking the flower essence or taking a tea of chamomile, it gives you a little bit of distance. And sometimes that's what the child needs. Is the child, like, I'll often, like, if something's really going on with my children, I'll just separate them. I'll be like, let's take some space. That's what they're doing right now because they were screaming because you weren't listening to me. And she's like, what? You're not listening. What? And then it turned into a scream fest. So, you know what? Let's take some distance. You're going to go upstairs and play. You're going to go downstairs and play. Let's just take some space. And then when everyone's calm, maybe we can come back together, talk about what happened, and then move on. And chamomile as a plant, which I think I'm going to brew for my girls when I go downstairs. It's funny how this is like the chamomile season too. We just had a new moon in Cancer, the mother, and I feel like there's a lot of this need right now for nurturing and soothing and taking a step back, right? Taking a step back, taking a look at the situation, really assessing what are our needs, and then what can we do to create peace. So that brings me to the card chamomile, and this is from the Herbal Astrology deck by Adriana Ayales, and I'll include a link in the description and on the YouTube video. But this card to me is just so beautiful. I want you to notice that there's a woman laying in the earth, and she's got these beautiful chamomile flowers almost like protecting her. They're covering over almost like a little umbrella, helping her to be able to take deep rest and sleep. And then notice the deer on the side here. And deer in traditional native medicine, from Ted Andrews and from the work of Matthew Wood, they're like, part of what they represent is gentleness and virility. And so when we are gentle, when we're able to rest, we improve our ability to be more vital and to have more vital force and to be more connective, physically and emotionally. But we have to be able to be gentle with ourselves first before we can be gentle with others. It often works that way. So Adriana connects chamomile with inner peace. And I think that's a really nice way of thinking about this plant too, is, are you taking care of yourself? What are the ways you can nurture and tend the child inside? Are you getting enough rest? Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating healthy food? Are you spending time with people who really fill up your cup and don't deplete you? Are you spending enough time in nature? Is your schedule too full? Do you need to just cross some things off of your, daily to-do list so that you can have some more just free creative spaciousness? And if the answer is yes to any of those, that can be how we take care of ourselves to restore our own inner peace, is just taking care of the basics. And as I always like to say, kind of my motto in life is tend to the living things first. And that starts with yourself. And then you move into your environment and say, what are the things that need to be tended that are alive? What relationships need to be tended? Like what are the living things in my under my direct care that need to be tended? And then you move towards them and you see what they need. And it's always okay to ask, what are your needs that I can help with? That's always okay. I want to talk a little bit now about dosing and using chamomile. Like practically, what do I do now that I have it? What do I do with it? So you can use the fresh flowers. They're delicious. I just like to nibble on them. So they taste really good, and you can just nibble them straight from the garden. You can also dry them. So these are some that I picked, I think, 2 days ago. And I like to basket dry them. You can't really see them, but these are all chamomile. And I just did a video. My last video was on drying herbs. So if you want to like step by step on the way that I dry my herbs, you can watch that video. But both the fresh and dried herbs can be used as a tea. I like to use about maybe 2 tablespoons of the dried flowers, and it's going to be puffy. It's not a flat, it's just a few tablespoons, maybe like 2 to 4. I'll do 2 tablespoons in 1 cup of hot water, 4 tablespoons in 2 cups of hot water. Let them sit only about 10 minutes. You don't need to let it sit long. The longer it steeps, the more bitter it will get. And it doesn't taste as good. And, it's a little more drying. The tannins come out the longer it steeps as well. So it will be more astringent. If you already run dry, you might not want that. So you might want more to 5 to 7 minutes of steeping. And then you just drink it as a tea, and you can drink it all day long. It's not just something you have to drink at night. You can start your day with chamomile. That would be a delicious, wonderful, soothing way to begin your day, is to start your nervous system off in a very regulated and reflective space. The other way you can take it is as a tincture. So you can use either fresh herb or dried herb to make a tincture. I do have a video in this somewhere in my herbal medicine making playlist, how to make tinctures. It's pretty easy. You just fill a jar with the herb, pour your alcohol over it, and then cap it, let it sit for about a month. And you can also buy your tincture from other medicine makers out there. I really like Herbalist and Alchemist, which is David Winston's herbal company. I also like Bear Wallow Herbs, which is my friend Kara Saunders out in Mount Shasta. She makes wonderful herbal tinctures. And I think those are like my top two. And then there's always Herb Farm and Gaia Herbs. And if you live in the UK or Australia, you might have your own favorite medicine provider. So that tincture, the dosage for a tincture is about 1 to 3 droppers full, about 3 times a day. So that's about a teaspoon 3 times a day. And that's a great way to make it. Another thing you can do is you can make an herbal infused oil. So I like to use the dried herb. So here's some dried herb from the garden. These are already now in a jar. And so you can add the dried herb into a carrier oil. And I usually like jojoba for the skin because it's not super oily. It's not like it absorbs nicely and it's not too greasy. And it's more neutral. It's not warming or cooling. It's more neutral. And you just let that sit in a warm water bath for maybe about 3 or 4 days. And you can do it as low, short as 2 days if you're going nonstop heat, like in a crock pot. It's a really easy way to make an herbal infused oil. And if you want to learn more about medicine making, I think I put the book back, but there's a great book by Rico Check called Making Herbal Medicines. I'll include a link for that as well. But really making your own oils and tinctures is very, very simple. It just takes some time. And, if you don't have it, that's fine. You can just look up, chamomile and fresh chamomile, or actually dried chamomile infused oil, and make sure it's not fragrance oil, because that's not chamomile. They'll just use something that, like a chemical that smells like chamomile in those oils. So you really want an infused oil. And then you apply that topically. And that's really good for dry skin, for red skin, for burned skin, for inflamed skin. And again, it's just a way to care for yourself. Just putting oils on your body is such an easy way to care and tend yourself. And in Ayurveda, they believe that when you oil your body, it is also, the oils in general are more kapha or earthy and watery. So it helps to hold the kapha energy in. So if you tend to be very vata, which is like very airy and like zing, 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 zing. If you're like very zingy and all over and you have a hard time with routine and like, keeping track of things, then your nervous system might really benefit from daily body oiling. And that oil it's like, they say that for vata types, people that are very airy, their nervous system is closer to the surface of their skin. So it's almost like the nerve ends feel like they're exposed to the environment, which is why they're like, very sensitive on all levels. So putting like an oil, especially if you can warm it up. I have a little cast iron skillet that I'll warm. My dog's going nuts. I'm sorry if you can hear that. If you can warm that on on some, like on your stove, and warm up your chamomile oil and then put it on, that's even more soothing for your nervous system. But if you don't have time for that, you don't have to worry about it too much. You can just put the oil on. So, oils, teas, tinctures, flower essence is another way you can use this medicine. It's very safe, it's very gentle, and yeah, it's a wonderful medicine you can use year round. I'm going to go calm my dog down, and I think my child is now barking at my dog. So, I'm going to go take care of that. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you all soon.